Do you realise what's actually taking place at the moment, what they are doing? And when I talk about they, I'm talking about the powers, the authorities, the institutions that are in control of this world and ultimately the demonic forces behind them. So are you aware of the reality of what's going on, of what they have already done, what they continue to do and what they plan to do in the future? They want to eliminate biblical Christianity. Not the compromised form of Christianity, but biblical Christianity which stands on the strong foundation of God's moral principles. Do you even realise there are things today that the church is too afraid to speak out against, and things that the church, the institutional church, has actually embraced, which only decades ago was accepted as immoral by the world? How did we get to this place? And isn't it terrifying of how much further we can fall given how far we've already come? So how does this actually happen? I'm going to tell you the 4 steps that they use to make this happen. So the first step is to make these fringe ideologies acceptable. The second step then, over a period of time, is to make those fringe ideologies equal with traditional values. The third step is then to make those superior to traditional values, and those who hold to these ideologies are seen as being more moral, seen as being more just and tolerant. And then the last step is to make these traditional values illegal. And it's very clever because these fringe ideologies, which are put forward by these vocal minorities, are framed in such a way in which people feel compelled to accept them. They're promoted on the basis of tolerance and justice and equality. And anyone who stands in opposition to these values is seen as pushing hate speech, is seen as bigoted, and no one wants to be seen as that. People are put under pressure to be silent and to publicly adopt these values until they become the norm. And of course they take hold of all of the major institutions, the educational institution, the political institutions, the media, and they push this narrative, conditioning the minds of a generation. They get hold of one generation, and by the time they've changed that generation, they've changed the future of a nation. Give me 4 years to teach the children, and the seed I have sown will never be uprooted. He alone who owns the youth gains the future. So let's take a few examples. Homosexuality, something that was an abomination years ago. And the family structure, one of the foundations of society, is being uprooted and destroyed. Another example is transgenderism. Decades ago, this would have been so ridiculous in the minds of all people, pretty much. A man can't be a woman can't be a man. One more example, abortion. The genocide of our generation. And the Bible and our faith, which was the foundation, the moral compass for a good and just society and people, is being considered one of the greatest forms of hate speech. Do you see how far we've come? And do you think that that option number 4, to make traditional values and Christianity illegal, do you think that that is impossible? Do you think that is even far off? Don't close your eyes to what's going on. And do you recognize how our voices are being silenced as well? When lies are put under the light, they are exposed as lies. When they are put under scrutiny, when the truth is put under scrutiny, it is shown to be the truth. The darkness does not like the light because the light exposes the darkness, so they need to try to eliminate the light. And then the problem goes a step further when it comes into the church. Society might compromise, but when the church starts compromising, then we have big problems. The institutional church comes under the fear and the pressure of what the culture is thinking and how the culture is perceiving them, so they adapt, they water down their message. They start adopting the theories and the radical ideas of the world, bring them into the church, and all of a sudden the world is impacting the church and the church is no longer impacting the world. And the institutional church is becoming weaker and weaker and weaker, and a smaller and smaller remnant of true believers and churches are standing for biblical truth. And will continue to do so despite the cost. But the influence of the church at large is being erased, and that moral compass which people looked to has been taken away. And without the resistance from the church to what's going on around us, the things that we have seen today are inevitable. Is it any surprise that we are where we are today when we have such a weak church in our society? The values and the morals, which were the very foundation of a flourishing Western democratic society, will be stamped out as the greatest form of hate speech. And all because people have been engineered to think in this certain way, to their destruction, the destruction of the people around them, and the destruction of their nation. So what I want to say to you, friends, when it comes to standing on biblical truth in a difficult and changing world, we cannot be intimidated, we cannot be silenced. We must stand for truth, whatever the cost is, and that cost may well increase more and more and more. You may not have a public platform, you may not be able to impact society at large, but you do have an audience and you do have a sphere of influence, and you can influence one person at a time, and that is what God has called you to do. Aren't we all men and women in a lifeboat, going around the sea, pulling people out of a drowning ocean one at a time, whoever we can bring on board? So friends, speak up for biblical truth and stand for biblical truth in this evil and wicked generation, like the lives of those people around you depend upon it, because the lives of those people around you do, in fact, depend upon it. If you feel led to partner with this ministry, there are links in the description below. Please consider subscribing to this channel. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless you.